This year, we're celebrating Efficiency North's first 20 years of collaborative procurement and best value for the people and communities our membership serves. To celebrate this milestone, we're sharing the stories of the people who have made Efficiency North happen and the difference they continue to make. Our official birthday is the 9th of August 2006. This day is when the South Yorkshire Decent Homes Efficiency Forum arranged for Almo South Yorkshire Chief Executive Forum to sign off the business plan after the 4 South Yorkshire Local Authority Chief Executives signed off.
Well then, Jed Turner, you are in fact the original creator of Efficiency North, who was in right at the beginning. So what was your job role with Sheffield City Council in 2006?
They were very interesting days. In 2006, I was called client manager. And the reason I was called client manager originated in 2003. Because just before that, around 2001-2, we made a decision as a council in Sheffield that we wanted to outsource the repair service in Sheffield because the DLO wasn't doing very well. And this was a major change for the council. It was all part of the context of Tony Blair bringing in this new ethos of working in partnership. And I set up that contract for Kia in 2001, 2002. And when it was all set up and ready, and we agreed the contract, I was on a tram to Manor Lane, where Kia were based at the time, with Phil Taylor, who was head of neighbourhoods. And he says, would I like to manage the partnership? So I said, yes. Because I just loved that whole project and I loved what we were doing with the DLO. And I was then based in Newbank House as part of the Neighbourhoods Directorate. And the reason it was called Client Manager, because my job was not only to manage the care partnership, it was working with the clients, with the housing client, with the corporate clients. It was fantastic for me because I was virtually very near to the head of housing strategy there, which is Carl Tuplin, and also Sheffield Homes, which is the Elmo, was on the floor above the council side, and we just worked very closely together. The Elmo housing client was somebody called Steve Jenkins. It was a lovely chap. I loved working with him. So working Newbank House is great because I was near to the people I need to be near. And the head of investment strategy was also part of the Elmo, was Janet Sharp. So I had lots of conversations with her as well.
So was you already sort of set up as a sort of internal consortium working? So you used to collaborating?
Absolutely,
from the start?
absolutely. Yeah, it was working with people. Because it was a partnership, it was one of the first of its kind. We set up the care partnership. We won many awards, which I wrote the bids for. And we won the Local Good Partnership of the Year award, which was a fantastic evening. You know, we had some Buck Kyers Lake there and everybody that was involved in the partnership. It was just a great place. And it was about collaborative working, even then. Very soon after setting up the care partnership in 2003, I think it was around 2004, the Labour government created a whole new programme called Decent Homes. Billions of pounds being made available across the country so that council homes can be upgraded. It meant for the first time in years, tenants got new windows, new doors, new kitchen, new bathroom. And it made sense because we had this decent home standard set by the government and a programme across the country, and had already established relationships with the South Yorkshire local authorities and Elmos through the benchmarking work I did with the care partnership, that we can come together and ask ourselves the question, why don't we pool our resources? Why don't we collaborate? Why don't we create a partnership that can serve the whole of the South Yorkshire region? The only focus at the time was decent homes. It was a massive 5-year contract as it was. And we had such great times during delivering the Decent Homes programme. I'll never forget the site visits and going out to tenants' homes and just seeing, you know, the joy, some new kitchen, new bathroom. Decent Homes Programme is largely cosmetic. And to some extent it is, because you're getting new bathrooms and new kitchens. He's not dealing with structural issues. He weren't dealing with new roofs and so forth. But those new bathrooms and new kitchen, new windows and doors just felt like we're creating new homes. And when we established that and started working with the partnership, with the contractors, with the likes of Lovells and, Waits and Kia, we started to think about, well, how can we actually get more efficiencies within the Decent Homes framework? Because if you're familiar with the way frameworks work, especially in those days, the first year's prices and costs were relatively easy to sort out because they were reflecting market prices. But it's how you sustain that and how you deal with making sure we've got good prices throughout the framework and working together to can we actually get better prices by, for example, getting better cost materials. And then we started spinning out with other ideas about how can we actually drill down. And I managed to get some resources from developing the consortium from the government, called the Efficiency Challenge Fund, I think it was. So I created some money where I could start to build up my resource and the consortium's resource. And so it became quite obvious that we were actually branching out and thinking about how can we get better efficiency, how can we get better procurement and better value all the time. Legally, the framework was set up by Sheffield City Council, and we got to a point where we thought, is this still the right way to do this? Because we had equal partnerships with Rotherham and Doncaster and Barnsley, and we were very, very clear we didn't want to ever come across that Sheffield was dominant. And it came clear that for the consortium to grow, then maybe it needed to stand on its own 2 feet. Maybe it needed to have its own independent legal entity. I think we called it Efficiency North, maybe at the time. And I'm just amazed how it is. I'm just so proud of the achievements of Efficiency North, seeing 20, 30 people employed, and we started with 2 or 3 of us. I'm not just doing, procurement, but wider things. But I've always been interested in training. When we created this old programme, I created another approach called Construction Job Match. So for every £1 million we spent at Decent Homes, we'd have an apprentice. It's a very simple story. And all of our apprentices were what we call NEET, which is probably still the term used today. People that were not in education employment, and mainly kids from these states. And it was a fantastic initiative. Really, really worked. We had some major celebration of the trainees. So it's really good that ethos is now still with Efficiency North. The link to apprentices is fantastic. And we're delivering a procurement consortium. And we stand our own 2 feet. And it's such a lovely atmosphere in Efficiency North. So it's different. It's so different. It's size and scale and scope. I'm so proud of the organisation.